we are going to go over some of the players who are a little underrated, shall we say. These are the names you need to know as you prepare for March. And to help us do that, I'm going to bring in our 24/7 Sports colleague, Brandon Jenkins, to the show. Brandon, welcome in. So here's what we're going to do today, fellas. We got the three of us. We've done this over text for the last couple of days. For those, I'm not going to say ignorant, but foolish fans who aren't tuning in until February, they need to be educated about players beyond just the Cooper Flags, the Ace Baileys, the Joni Brooms. So we're going to tell them about some guys that they need to know. And I want to start with the guards. Trotter, I will start with you. Tell us a guard who's going to be relevant, whether it's to the college basketball season or even the NBA draft process, who you have your eyes on that more fans need to know.
Yeah, I think the evolution of Tyrese Proctor has been really fascinating for Duke. This is a guy who, when he came in, it was like, oh, like he could be like the next one, a 5-star pick. Like this could be a one and done. And, the first 2 years are a little bit slow. This year, he's really evolved into an outstanding role player. And there are nights where he feels like the second best player on this team behind Cooper Flag. He's 6'6". He's shooting over 41% from three. They've really changed his role to play more of an off-ball role. And I think that's really helped him. Like he's just playing the role, I think, from an NBA perspective that we'd most likely see him at. And then from a college perspective, he is a complete lockdown defender right now. Like for a 6'6" guy, he does not get screened. He guards small guards extremely well. And when they go switch everything, like he's fine against everybody. He is a terrific, terrific defender. He's an underrated part, I think, of what this Duke offense and defense has become. Duke defensively, they can switch everything. It's really hard to drive them because they have nobody you can attack, and you're just constantly taking contested jumpers. Then offensively, they're just creating a ton of unguarded catch and shoot threes over and over and over again. And Proctor is really making it work. So from a college basketball perspective, when you tune into Duke and you see Cooper Flag and Con Knipple, like those are probably the top two guys. But I think Proctor has worked himself into really being super important for this team. And I think he's a sneaky NBA prospect. I don't know if he's going to be a first rounder, but it would not surprise me at all if he's a top 40 pick in the 2025 NBA draft.
Tyrese Proctor, so far in the month of February, 19 points per game on 54, 49, 75 shooting with a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. And I thought you made a terrific point about his defense. Brandon, I'm going to go to you. Who do you have your eye on so far?
Yeah, I'm looking at Junie Mobley just because of the day and the age and when and done with the NBA draft. You see a lot of freshmen that are productive that, work their way on the draft boards, but Junie Mobley has kind of like fell under the radar when you think about what he's done production-wise and how it hasn't really amounted to anything on this year's draft boards. And maybe it's because of his size, but from day one, he came off the bench and lit it up from behind the three-point line, something that he had a strong reputation of doing back when he was in high school. He shoots over 40% from three, and he's lethal and he's confident with deep range. So it's one of those things where he's not on draft boards now, but he's producing as a freshman, and I could see this dude not only being the face of Ohio State, but like also being the face of the sport, just with how lethal he is as a shooter.
See, this is why I love having Brandon on the show, because we're so like-minded. I mean, it's just this is what I'm talking about. Junie Mobley shoots a feathery ball, and he shoots a feathery ball from about 40 feet. He's been doing it since he was an underclassman at Bishop Gorman High School in Vegas. I know he ended at Wasatch, but he can shoot like almost no other. Been a huge fan of his for a long time. I think that's a great call by Brandon. I'm going to talk about another guard, another freshman guard. And yes, it's the same guy who pulled up for three in that 1-versus-2 game in transition, Tahad Pettiford. Tahad Pettiford was someone that I really advocated for this time last year to make the McDonald's All-American game. He ended up doing that, and all he has done at Auburn is exceed expectations. He's averaging in double figures. He's been a three-range threat, and fearless is the word that not only Isaac used before, but you heard Stephen Pearl use earlier this week when he talked about the big shot-making ability. Guy who scores at all three levels. He makes tough shots from three with his pull-up. You can see the old-school use of the glass there. And I think it's important that just contextually, people don't talk about this. JP Pegues was widely presumed to be the starting point guard coming into this season, and that was the narrative about why Auburn was going to be so much better, because they finally had the point guard position figured out. That didn't come to fruition the way people expected. He had a hard time with the transition to a higher level of play, and it's been Pettiford, although he's come off the bench every single game, who's provided that boost in the backcourt and that playmaker that they haven't necessarily had. I think he's been phenomenal. It's going to be very interesting to see what he does in the offseason because remember, this is an Auburn team that has 11 seniors on it. There's only 2 guys with eligibility to come back. So does he choose to come back and be the face of the franchise, or does he explore the NBA? Because I do think that's going to be a possibility. The other thing I'll mention, he's listed at 6'1". That's not necessarily the case. This guy measured 5'11" and change 4 different times in high school. Now he has a massive 6'5" wingspan. I say that not as a criticism, but just to illustrate how impressive it is what he's doing to be able to get his shot off at multiple levels at his size. He's got a ton of game, and he's proved it on the biggest stages of college basketball. All right, we are going to kind of now shift the tide. We're going to talk about some wings. So, Trotter, this is a spot that I think from an NBA perspective, sometimes there are names in college basketball that scouts are interested in that aren't necessarily at the forefront of college stardom. But who's a wing who's been on your radar lately?
Every time I watch St. John's, I love RJ Luis. Like, I love him. And I'm not supposed to because I like wings that can make threes. And Luis is not a three-point shooter right now. Like, there's times where the jumper looks a little bit iffy. He'll airball like a 17-foot jumper sometimes. But the speed, the power, the explosiveness that he plays with defensively is unbelievable. In transition, he's a complete, like, freight train getting to the rim, getting a ton of free throw attempts. And, you know, he is one of the best conditioned athletes, I think, in college basketball. He plays so hard and rarely comes off the floor, 94 feet pressing you, like just in your grill 24/7. And like, just like that type of athlete that he is just impressive to me. And just like, he really does embody a lot of what St. John's is all about. Like, he is that connecting piece defensively for them that just ramps them up to a new level. And it doesn't look like the coolest all the time, right? Like the jumper is, I'm telling you, it's not like the prettiest jumper of all time, but like the physicality and the rim pressure are something that I just don't think a lot of guys have. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Jaime Jaquez from UCLA a few years ago, where it's just impacts the game in like 19 different ways. And that helps and impacts winning. And like, that's why St. John's is the best team in the Big East. And that's why Luis is probably going to win Big East Player of the Year. I honestly think that's kind of where this is trending.
That is a darn good comp. I really like that. The mid-range master, the guy who, you know, we say, is he going to be able to shoot threes? Is he going to be able to shoot threes? We don't know. We'll figure that out when he tries to be a pro. But right now it doesn't matter because he's just dominating the mid-range area. All right, Brandon, back to you. A wing guard who is flown under the national radar, who deserves a little more love.
Yeah, I think I'm going to stick in the Big East with Solo Ball. It just seems like every time I turn on the TV, he's always lacing a three every time I'm watching UConn. And I like this dude just because, like, he stuck it out. You know, in this day and age of the transfer portal where people, you know, don't really battle through adversity, he has stuck it out. He won him a national championship, and then he's came into this role after Cam Spencer's leaving and has been the guy that UConn has relied on to make shots down the stretch. I think back to that Marquette game, it just seemed like every three-pointer he hit was very loud and very crucial. I love the way that he shoots off the move. I love his body. He's very college strong. And I just think that he's somebody who's really bought into what Hurley is preaching. And so for him to be able to retain his players and for Solo to actually develop into what he is, adding 10 points per game over the season, I think this is a dude that can light it up, and he'll be big for UConn down the stretch if they're, you know, trying to find some consistency as March, you know, is coming upon us.
Couldn't agree with you more. In fact, in December, I wrote for CBS how Solo Ball has really taken on that role as like the next in line of Jordan Hawkins and the guy who they use as a movement shooter. And it wasn't necessarily his niche in high school, but he's really improved in his 2 seasons at UConn. Stepped into, I think really it's him, it's Caravan, and it's Liam McNeely who make up just the vast majority of their offensive punch right now. If they can get those 3 guys on the same level, they still have a chance to do damage, in my opinion. All right, I'm going to go out to Oklahoma, and I'm going to talk about Jalen Moore. Now, this is admittedly a name that most people are not familiar with, but I think for a team that is right on the bubble, a team that's got a chance to make the NCAA tournament, but also for NBA scouts, this is going to be a very intriguing player to watch. We're talking about a 6'7" senior. He's in his second year at Oklahoma. He started his career at Georgia Tech. He is a big-time athlete, and he also looks really, really long. Now, I could not find any measurement history, so I don't have any data to back that up. But when you're talking about 6'7", long, athletic, and now making spot up threes as well to the tune of 40% per game, over 1 make from 3 per game. That is the type of translatable role player that the NBA could be very interested in. Now, I will tell you this, defensively, he's got the physical tools to be multi-positional, but there's still some fundamental things to clean up from coverages, closeouts, helping off shooters in the corner, that type of thing. But physically, all the tools are there. Now, when you look at Oklahoma's schedule, we said they are a team that's going to have to try and win a couple games here to close out their bid. They were perfect, literally, in the non-conference schedule with some notable wins against programs like Arizona, Louisville, and others. But they've got to get it done here in the non-conference, in conference play and finish on a little bit more of an upswing to close this out. But Jalen Moore, to me, is someone that both college fans and NBA scouts should be very, very interested in down the stretch. All right, fellas, we are going to talk last about an X-factor player who can swing a game. Basically, there's no positional limit here, just one other guy who you are really intrigued with, who college fans need to familiarize themselves with down the home stretch of the season. Isaac, I will start with you.
Maxime Reynaud out of Stanford is tremendous. I think if you tune in to watch him, he's a 7'1" center, but he plays point guard for this offense more often than not. He's bringing the ball up the floor. He initiates offense. He's a terrific playmaker, and he can shoot the absolute cover off of it. He's made almost 50 threes already this year. Like no other 7-footer in college basketball is putting up those type of numbers. And he really is Cooper Flagg's biggest challenger for ACC Player of the Year. And I don't think Stanford is going to make the NCAA tournament, but that week before the NCAA tournament, 2 weeks before when the ACC tournament is going on and you're able to watch them during championship week and maybe Stanford can go on a little bit of run, you could see them on back-to-back days. You're going to watch Reynaud and be like, is that dude a pro? Is he the best player in college basketball sometimes? He has those dominant nights where it's 27 points, 14 rebounds, a few blocks, 6 assists. He puts up crazy numbers, and the tape just backs it all up. He's been outstanding this year. Kyle Smith has a long history of big men going to him and playing at a high level. He will use the Reynaud tape for a minute in the transfer portal. I guarantee that moving forward. And we'll see what Reynaud is as an NBA prospect too, because anytime you're 7'1" and you can pass like that and shoot like that, and evaluators are going to be interested.
Yeah, I think Reynaud is a pro. Best player in college basketball? No, but I know you're saying that tongue-in-cheek, but certainly a pro. How about Stanford? They're 16-10 in Kyle Smith's first season, and they're a game above 500 in ACC play. I'm not sure people recognize just how good they've been this season and what a job Smith has done. So, again, co-sign that enthusiastically. Brandon, going to go to you, your last pick, someone who deserves a little more love nationally than they've gotten so far.
Yeah, I'm looking at Joseph JoJo Tugler at Houston. He's somebody in high school that I was, very high on his fit within the Cougars program, just because, when he emerged as a high school prospect, it was all about how hard he played, how long his arms were, and how much effort he brought to the game. And, as we all know, that really translates well to what Kelvin Sampson and his staff has done, over the past, 9 to 10 years. And so I think JoJo has a chance to be one of the more exciting players to watch in March because, his stats might not be the most exciting, but, he rebounds. His putback dunks are insane. He can protect the rim emphatically. So, he's capable of making those plays that not a lot of players can make. And he's just very explosive and very exciting to watch. And I think because of what he's done defensively, it's kind of bolstered his name on the NBA draft board. So, yeah, he's somebody who plays with that, throwback Ben Wallace approach when it comes to, being that defensive anchor. And I think Kelvin Sampson really values him for that. And I think he'll be exciting to watch because of it, too.
I love the Ben Wallace comp. I think that is absolutely spot on. The thing, Tugler's listed at 6'8", and if Tugler is 6'8", I'm 6'5". It's just not anywhere near true. But what he is massively long. In high school, he got measured with I think he was 6'5" and change with a 7'5" wingspan. I literally the longest wingspan from a differential standpoint that I can ever remember seeing. And I think he may be one of the most impactful defensive players in the country. I think that is a great call. JoJo Tugler at Houston. I'm going to end going back to the Big East with Micah Peavy in his first season at Georgetown playing for Ed Cooley, came from TCU, where, listen, this guy learned how to guard for Jamie Dixon. And if you watch Georgetown closely, this year, you see he guards all 5 positions. I'm being very literal when I say that. He'll guard the opposing center. He'll guard the opposing point guard. He's made strides as a shooter, as you see here. Can still get a little flat, but the ability to make spot-up shots is going to be the key to a translatable NBA role because we know he's elite defensively. We've also seen him expand his offensive profile this year at Georgetown. They've taken advantage of his ability to get downhill. They've found him opportunities to drive and rip and create open lanes for him. I think he's had a phenomenal year and played his way into draft consideration and also helped the Hoyas make a notable jump in year 2 of the Ed Cooley era.